welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki, I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today we're going to step slightly away from grief, sort of, question mark. We're going to talk about how to support somebody with a terminal illness. Now, grief is definitely part of a terminal diagnosis, obviously. I've probably mentioned it before, but if I haven't, grief often starts with diagnosis for not just the dying person, but their loved ones as well. Once that diagnosis has been made, that tends to start the beginning of the process of dying for most people. Now, one can argue the minute we're born, we start dying, which is true. It is accurate. However, we don't necessarily think about it that way. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I always kind of argue we should be focusing on living and not dying. But once a terminal diagnosis has been given, this is usually the point when someone considers their death journey to begin, and also their grieving process. And this is different for everybody. Like anything in life, this is different for everybody. Some people may have been sick for a long time and they're not incredibly surprised by their diagnosis. And some folks might feel relief. So it's a good place to start is to let the person who with the diagnosis lead how things are going to go, at least at the onset, right? Because as I was just explaining, everybody's going to take their diagnosis differently. If somebody has been very, very ill for a long period of time, they may take this diagnosis as a relief. They might feel glad that they now have a label to put on this and a way to treat it, to move forward. Now, treatment doesn't always necessarily mean cure. Treatment can just mean lessening the pain. So sometimes it might come as a feeling of relief for some folks. For most folks, I think there will be a shock, fear, denial, resentment, anger. I mean, all the feels can come through with this. And for the dying person, but also for the loved ones. Now, my first suggestion there was letting them lead things. Don't forget yourself in this too. If this is someone you're very close with, your significant other, a parent, a child, a sibling, or even just a best friend, if it's somebody that you share a real bond with, don't forget yourself in this too. You're obviously going to be going through a lot along with them. You'll have a lot of grief and a lot of feelings too. And don't ignore those. Don't deny those. Definitely be there for them. Let them lead things. But don't forget to take time for yourself with this. We'll get more into that later. So, but a terminal illness, to kind of go back to basics, sometimes it is also called a, quote, life-limiting illness. Basically just a condition or illness, something that cannot be cured and will most likely lead to death. Our brains are set up to protect us for the most part, which is why, and this is a whole other topic for a whole other day, things like depression and anxiety are sometimes in us for protective reasons. They're survival mechanisms. Again, another topic for another day. Feel free to look in on that. It's actually quite fascinating. But our brains are meant to protect us and to try to keep us from harm. We have this primal mechanism somewhere in our brain that tells us that death is something that we witness, that happens outside, and it's not something that we experience. Obviously, we all know we will. But that's why when things like a diagnosis are brought to us, when we're specifically told, we all know in our brains, we all know that we're going to die one day. But our brains are just kind of keeping that at bay for a while. So when we're given these diagnoses and told, this is it, you have X amount of time left to X amount of time left, but this will end your life. It's really, really hard for us to process that. It's hard for us to accept that. So there's a lot of denial and fear and sadness. But denial's a big one because it's like, no, these are things that happen to other people. Other people get sick and die, not me. Well, once that diagnosis is there, it's there, right? And so a lot of people may have a really bad reaction to this news, especially if it does seem to be unexpected. It's like, I just had a headache for a little while. How can this possibly be a brain tumor? Or I just had an achy back. It was just acid reflux. It was just, until it's not just, and it's something much bigger. And that's when things really kind of kick in. So something to keep in mind, know all these things, educate yourself, start learning about what other folks who are in the position of your significant other, your friend, whoever, your loved one, is now going to be in. They've been diagnosed with lung cancer. Okay, what have other people with lung cancer experienced? What is this going to be like? How can I support them? Do some research, talk to their doctors, be involved in their process so that you can help them as best you can. Some other tips: never make assumptions about what the person is going through. Don't assume you know how they're feeling. Like I said, some people might have a sense of relief when it comes to a diagnosis, and that might seem weird to you, but so don't assume necessarily that they're shocked and terrified. They might be, but they might not be. So just ask them, talk to them, get a feel for what they're feeling and how you can support them best. But also don't automatically assume that somebody who has a terminal diagnosis or a terminal illness might not want to be part of things. Don't discount them like on that big family vacation you're all going on. Well, my sister has cancer, so she might not want to go on this trip. Well, maybe she does. This might be a huge trip. This might be the last one she gets to take with the family. So don't discount people just because they have a diagnosis or an illness that they might not want to be part of things. They might want that even more. If there's something like a vacation or a gathering or a party coming up and you're not sure how they're going to feel about it, ask them or just invite them. Let them decide if they want to be there or not. Let's say you're about to have a birth announcement or a baby shower, something of that nature, and you're worried that your sister, who now has been given, a year to 2 years left to live because of a terminal diagnosis, she might not want to be around all this excitement about birth and life because she's dying. Well, you don't know that. Don't assume that. She might really want to be part of it because she wants to pass on something to this, new life that's going to be coming after she's gone or shortly after she's gone, things like that. Don't make those assumptions. Let them decide. Another thing, don't always focus just on their illness or their diagnosis. Sometimes, like if it were me, there might be a day where I'm like, I don't want to think about my cancer anymore. If I were to have, I don't have cancer. If I were to have a diagnosis or some type of illness, there might be a day where I'm like, I don't want to think about this. I don't want anything to do with cancer right now. I just want to go live a normal day. So that would be on me to ask, like, hey, let's go shopping. Let's go see a movie. Let's go to the zoo or just do something and not talk about it. So try not to always focus on the illness. Obviously be open. If they want to talk about it, listen, let them talk. But sometimes they might just want to escape for a little bit and have a quote unquote no sickness day. Okay? So don't always make that like the forefront of every single conversation you have with that person. It's hard for somebody when they're in that position, when they have that diagnosis, to be like, well, now I'm the dying person. Everybody's looking at me and all they're seeing is cancer. All they're seeing is ALS. All they're seeing is whatever. They're not seeing me anymore. They're just seeing that illness. So having somebody to be there to just see them for them is huge. So just remember, underneath their diagnosis, they're a human being and they want to be recognized as such. Also, try to avoid maybe describing them as dying. Again, they're not their diagnosis. They're still a human being. There's a conundrum that I've brought up multiple times when talking to somebody who has lost somebody close to them, who's already passed away, that folks are afraid to talk about that. They're afraid to ask about, like, are you okay? Because they're afraid, well, if I ask them if they're okay, I'm reminding them their husband died. I guarantee you they didn't forget. Okay? And that's like a person with a terminal diagnosis. They know they're dying. They don't need to be reminded of it every single time you talk to them. They're still very much alive and they still have life left. Okay? So focus on that. Don't necessarily focus on their death or their dying moments, unless that's what they want to do. Always let them lead these conversations. Another huge thing to think about is remembering the other caregivers for this person. Especially if this is somebody you're a little bit removed from, like say it's your sibling. Their spouse might be going through a lot because they're with them 24/7. Don't forget the caregivers. They're suffering every bit as much, just differently. Things, offer to let them have a day off. So, you know what, I can sit here, let me take care of so-and-so today. Go see a movie, go hang out with your friends, go get a massage, things like that. Take care. Again, this is something, a lot of these are things that I do as a doula, or we can do as a doula if there are no caregivers around. But giving caregivers a break is huge. I have a close friend right now whose husband was diagnosed with very early onset Alzheimer's, and she's really struggling because she's his sole caregiver for right now, but she's also very young, and this isn't something people her age go through. And it's hard to see somebody you love and your partner in life to go through something like this. So giving her friends, his friends will sometimes, take him for a weekend and they go camping and give her a bit of a break. And that is huge. Giving people some slack, but also not even necessarily giving them a break. Just remembering that they're suffering too and they might need some help for them. Talk to them. See how they're doing. Ask them if they want to talk things out or what they might need. And again, jump in and help. Just come. Don't show up uninvited, but unless you have that relationship. But if you come over to their house, like, you know what, I'm going to run and do the dishes for you real quick. I see them sitting there and you've got some stuff on your plate. Let me go handle that. Or, hey, your yard looks like it's mowed. I'm just going to grab the mower and do that for you. Just do it. Some things like that. Don't even ask permission. Just do it. Unless they're super picky about it. But just dive in. Start helping. And they'll tell you if they don't want it. They'll let you know, I'm good. Please stop. Also, going back to they're not the diagnosis, they're a human being. And not using the words like dying. Don't give up on this person. Don't think, well, what more is there to do? They're going to be gone in 6 months anyway. No, don't think of it as their life will be over in 6 months. Think they still have 6 months of living left. Just retraining your brain to think about those types of things. Like they have 6 months of life left, not they're going to be gone in 6 months. Don't give up on them. They're still a human being. This is something you hear a lot of preaching on, and I'm guilty of this as well, but put your phone away. Keep it in your purse, leave it in your car, turn it off, turn it on silent, turn the notifications off. Be fully present with that person, especially if you're having a good conversation with them or you're spending the day with them. Whatever it is can wait. If it's an absolute emergency, somebody will find a way to get a hold of you, but put your phone away. Don't check your email when there's a quiet moment. Let that quiet moment exist. There's nothing wrong with having a quiet moment when nobody's talking. There isn't. It might feel awkward, but you get used to it. Just be present with them, okay? And again, I'm guilty of this too. I'm really bad about my phone. I'm one of those people. I fully admit that. I'm getting better. Put your phone away. Put your laptop away. Put your book away. Just be present. And lastly, don't forget yourself. Feel what you want to feel. This is something I talk about in every episode. Accept your feelings. Feel them. It's okay. You might have somebody in your life that has this terminal diagnosis and you're helping them and you're trying to do everything you can to be there and support them, but you might be grieving too. We've talked about anticipatory grief or pre-grief or whatever you want to call it. That tends to start with diagnosis. Okay, the grief will start long before somebody is even actively dying. Know that that's there. Feel your feelings, accept them, work through them. Okay, be there for that person, but don't lose sight of yourself as well in all of this. Okay? All right. I threw a lot out there, but there's so much more too. But if you take nothing else away from this episode, the key points I would like for you to have are the person is not their diagnosis. They are them. They are a human being. Everybody is entitled to their feelings and to feel what they need to feel. Okay? And don't be afraid to jump in and help them. Okay? Don't be afraid of somebody who has a diagnosis. Yeah, they might be dying, but don't be afraid of them. There's still that human being underneath it all. Okay. Well, I hope that was useful to you. I like to have these episodes with tips like this for people who might be outside of the grief process or outside of a dying process, because it's hard. It's hard to... It's like my episode, one of my most popular episodes is the what to say and what not to say to somebody who's grieving. Because it's hard for us when we're not in somebody's shoes. We don't know what they're feeling, so we don't know what to say. We don't know what to do, and we don't want to say or do the wrong thing. Overall, guys, just be there. When you're dealing with somebody else going through something, just be present. Listen. That's it. That's all you have to do. You'll figure it out, I promise. Okay. Okay, well, that's it for this. But hey, if you if you're supporting somebody who is dying or you're grieving yourself, there's some people that can help you at BetterHelp. Hey, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. If you're suffering or if you're grieving, the folks at BetterHelp are there. They can help you. They're the world's largest therapy service, 100% online. And with BetterHelp, you can get into a network of over 25,000 licensed and experienced therapists who can help you with a wide range of issues. To get started, you just answer a few questions on their website about your needs and what your preferences are, and then they can match you with the right therapist from their network. You can talk to therapists however you're comfortable, text, chat, phone, video, Zoom, whatever. You can message your therapist at any time. You can schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you so you don't have to miss work or your favorite TV show. If for any reason you're not happy with your therapist, you can switch, no cost, and they won't be offended, I promise. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. That's okay. With BetterHelp, you can get the same professionalism and quality you would get from in-office therapy, but with a therapist that's custom picked just for you. Scheduling flexibility, all that great stuff. And at a more affordable price. You can get 10% off your first month at BetterHelp if you go to betterhelp.com/Nikki the Death Doula. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Nikki the Death Doula. Okay, enough of that crap. Now it's time for the Death Deck. Whoa. Okay, so I'm going to shuffle the card. We're getting to a point now where every now and then I have to pause because I keep pulling cards I've read before. Which is weird because this is a huge deck. Anyway. Okay. Your significant other has died. What area would you struggle with the most? A, making money and managing the household. B, raising the kids. Or C, emotional support. Well, for me, I'm going to have to, that's pretty easy. I'd have to say C. I'm the more financially minded of the two of us, and we don't have children. But I would be an absolute train wreck if my husband were to be gone. He is my everything. He is like the one thing that keeps me sane and the one thing that, he has saved my life more times than I can ever tell you. I would be a mess without him. I'm sure I could find a way to continue on, but my God, it would be awful for a while. That was kind of a dark one. But it's something to think about. Things happen. I'm always saying none of us are guaranteed tomorrow. So, yeah, something to think about, I guess. I would love to hear what your answer to the Death Deck question was, or any of the questions. I'm posting these on my Facebook page, Nikki the Death Doula. So, go there and let us know what your answer is, or talk about this. And please share it with other people. I'd like to get more listeners. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening today. It really helps the algorithm so more people can find me. But if you'd like to find me elsewhere, I'm at NikkiTheDeathDoula.com. I'm also on Facebook and Instagram at Nikki the Death Doula. Please feel free to reach out to me there. And if you'd like to support me on Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. As always, all the money I receive through my Patreon goes into a fund so that I can provide pro bono work to those who cannot afford my services. And you'll also get access to bonus content and maybe even a shout out here on the podcast. Scripts, editing, sound design, production, literally everything is done by me, myself, just me. Except for the music. The music is Cheery Monday by Kevin MacLeod, and you can find license information at filmmusic.io/standard-license. And as always, a special shout out to my best friend and husband for continuing to support me along the way.